Welcome, dear listeners, to another bone-chilling episode of Unveiling Nightmares. I'm your host, C.A. Bainham, and today we have a special guest with us. So our guest today is none other than DE McCluskey, author of All These People Are Going to Die, Dark Nightmares, and The Boyfriend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
That's brilliant. Very welcome.
I didn't have nothing else to do today. So I'm all right. I've actually just finished work and I was banging my head against the brick wall in work. So I'm actually really looking forward to this.
That's fine. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am from Liverpool in the UK. I started writing probably around about 12 years ago. I'm not telling you how old I am now, but I'm older than 49 and younger than 51. But so I didn't start writing till about 12 years ago, and I started off doing graphic novels and comics because they are my first love. So I started off. The very first publication that I ever did was, and it's available now on Amazon. It's called Interesting Times, spelled with a Y. And basically, it's an anthology of six short horror stories, all written in rhyme for kids. Yeah. So I started that, and then I started writing longer stories, all for graphic novels and comics. And then when I realised that, because I can't draw, I couldn't even draw a stick. If you said to me, Dave, draw me a stick, I'd struggle. So I realised then that if I was going to continue with the graphic novels, it was going to cost me an arm and a leg. Yeah. So it was costing me like mortgage payments. Yeah. Each time I needed a page doing. Yeah. So,
illustration is quite expensive, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Especially I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I like what I like, and what I like tended to be really expensive. So I thought to myself, I'll either need to sell drugs, rob a bank, or give up and start writing novels, which you don't need artists for. Yeah, and because I'm a chicken, and I wouldn't even rob a. I know I've got a Scouse accent, and everybody says, everyone's like the Scousers are going to rob you blind. But I wouldn't even rob a Twix out of a shop. I would be absolutely shitting the brick. Yeah. So I thought, the bank's out. I can't deal drugs because my mum would kick me head in. So I'll have to be writing novels.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you started writing novels rather than robbing banks.
I know. Although I reckon I'd probably be like loads richer now. Either loads richer or in jail. I don't know, one of the two.
So what inspired you to write in the horror genre?
It's just right. Okay. When I was a kid, we're talking like about 6 or 7, I was the biggest chicken ever on the planet. I mean, I think I slept with the landing light on till I was about 14. I had 2 older sisters, right, and they slept in the big room together, and I had the box room in the middle. And do you know what they used to do? Absolute pair of bitches, because they knew I was like proper scared. Yeah, they would whisper through the wall to me, and they would pretend to be Tinkerbell, and they'd be like, David, it's Tinkerbell. Have you been a good boy? And I honest to God, and it just petrified me. So I was scared of everything. And then I remember watching American Werewolf in London. And that absolutely scared the pants off me as well. You know that scene where he's running through the woods? It's like a dream scene. And he's running through the woods and he sees himself in the bed, in a hospital bed. And he goes over to himself and he opens his eyes and he's got like wolf eyes and he goes on. That scene stuck with me. So when I got a little bit older, I was about 11, I think, and I read Stephen King's Skeleton Crew. And that just pushed me in the direction of horror. So it was then Stephen King's The Stand, Stephen King's It. Then I got into Richard Lehman, and then I got into James Herbert, who's my all-time favourite author, and then I got into like the Necroscope books by Brian Lumley.
Yeah,
Loved them books. Yeah, so it was a natural progression for me to start writing horror because it was what I knew. It was what I knew. I love superhero stuff as well. I don't like the superhero films. I don't like the DC, I like Marvel, DC and Marvel universe that are on the cinema now. I hate all them. But I loved the comics. But horror was just like, it just intrigued me. So that was where we went with that one.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I've interviewed have all mentioned Stephen King was a big influence in them starting.
Yeah, he was everywhere, wasn't he? In the 70s and 80s, he was the god, and that's what you went for because it was so readable and it was so easily digested, and that's just how good he is as an author. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
he waffles a bit nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you're the first one to mention Richard Lehman and James Herbert. They were brilliant.
James Herbert is my all-time favourite. People always say, I take it Stephen King's going to be your main influence. I say, no, it's not. It's James Herbert. And the reason being is when I was a kid and I started reading the Stephen King and the James Herberts, Stephen King was writing about this mysterious place called Maine in America. Yeah. And it was like these little places called Derry, and they had like these Indian summers, and it was like roasting, and then it was freezing, and it was all like a magical wonderland that you couldn't as an 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid growing up in Liverpool had never even dreamed of going to America. It was lost. It was lost on me. Although I loved it because I had my own sort of imagination of what these places looked like, but it was lost on me. James Herbert wrote about gritty London, and then he also wrote about nice little hamlets in the middle of the countryside in England, and I could envision them. I could see them, and that's kind of what drew me to James Herbert.
Yeah.
Also the random sex scenes in the middle of the James Herbert books as well.
Yeah.
just like did have these protagonists are running away from these like mutant rats. There's like millions of them running at them, and they go, "Right, you've got to go into this little room. We'll go to this little room. I know, let's have sex." There's all these rats scratching at the door and stuff like that. And then there's like a 2-page sex scene, and then all of a sudden it's back to the story. It was proper like them of the days of like the page 3 girls and stuff like that, wasn't it? So you could just imagine that his publisher had said, "Come on, James, get a bit of titillation in there."
Okay, so tell me about your books without giving away any spoilers, of course.
Okay, well, I do comics, graphic novels. I do novellas, novels. I've got. How many have I got now? I think in all I've got about 37 publications, including comics and graphic novels.
Yeah.
I think 25 of them are books and novels and graphic novels and novellas. But they're not all horror. I've written a story called Butterflies, which is like a romantic drama.
Yeah.
My sister actually said to me, she said, "I bet you couldn't write one of these like rippling, muscular men love stories." And I was like, hold my beer. So I've written that one. But you know what? It gets good reviews. It's a bizarre one. I'm not going to be doing it again. So I write that one. I wrote a little bit of sci-fi in a book called The Time Ripper, which is a science fiction time traveling Jack the Ripper story. And I've written fantasy in the Glimmer series, which is like 3 books, which is a full-on, like a full saga. And I also write children's books as well.
Yeah, children's books. Was that
children's books? Yeah. So I wrote a couple of novels, a couple of children's novels, a couple of children's comics, and a few picture books as well.
Yeah.
For the younger kids. And what I do is I go into the schools with these children's books, and I go into the schools and I tell them, I start like teaching the kids how to use their imaginations
Yeah.
And I tell them that, like, nobody can tell you that if you create a story, no one can tell you that story's wrong, because it's yours and it comes from your imagination.
That's right.
And they love it. They absolutely love it. But I always tell the teachers never to let the kids to Google DE McCluskey. Keep them away from, just tell them to Google Dave. I'm not DE. Because I wouldn't want some of the kids reading Zola or Cravens, that's for sure. I'd never be allowed back in the school ever again.
Yeah, you could just imagine, couldn't you, the kids going home going, oh, I've got to Google that guy that came into school today, and just comes up. He showed us that.
Yeah, the mum and dad would be like, oh, what are they doing in school these days? That's not like what we used to read in school. But yeah, so I do like mainstream horror, which is my favourite, really. That's what I like to read, mostly. But I also do extreme splatterpunk. I do a lot of horror comedy. I love throwing comedy in my books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a book called Mutants, Superhero, Zombie Killing Disco Cheerleaders from Outer Space with Uzis. And obviously that's like a little bit of horror, Yeah. A little bit of comedy, a little bit of horror, a little bit of comedy.
That's great. So you've got sort of like a wide range of sort of like things that you write for. That's brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. Crystal, just bear with me a second, because my headphones are just about to die, so I'm going to take the headphones off Bluetooth and just go with my computer door.
Okay. There you go. Back in the room.
Okay. So can you tell us about the first horror story that you ever wrote?
The first horror story I ever wrote was it was a Christmas story for kids, and it's called The Good Behaviour Act.
Yeah.
And it's in Interesting Times, which is me comic. Now, imagine the scene, right? It's Christmas Eve, right? My daughter is 3 years of age. Okay, I'm lying in bed with her and I'm reading her the night before Christmas.
Yeah.
So I'm reading, it was the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. And she's fast asleep at the end of it. And I'm thinking, I must have the most boring voice in the world to get a 3-year-old asleep on Christmas Eve. So I literally gets out of the bed, and I thought to myself, I mean, Clement Moore, love it. I mean, absolutely one of my all-time favourite stories. But I thought to myself, I could do that. So gets on my computer over the Christmas holiday time, just like over the few days that you have. And I just started banging out this little story. And it started off as a nice little Christmas rhyme. And then, because my mind is a bit warped, it turned into the Good Behaviour Act, which it's what happens if you get on Father Christmas's naughty list. So basically, if you're on the naughty list, Father Christmas comes and eats you.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's for the kids. So I always used to say to my daughter's Grace, I would say better be good, otherwise Father Christmas is going to come and eat you. So she hates Christmas now.
I can imagine. So I could just see me telling my 10-year-old that.
Yeah, I'll send you it. Yeah.
So how do you come up with the dark and eerie settings?
Oh well, this is a great question, and it's a question I love answering, right? Because I've got a book called Crack, and I don't know whether you've ever read it or whether you've ever read the synopsis of it or whatever, but it's a really dark psychological horror, right? And so I was driving home. I used to work in the nuclear industry, so I was working down south in Oxford, and I was driving back home to Liverpool, and it comes off the A34 is a notorious nightmare of an A road which goes onto the A42. So I'd been on the A34 for about an hour and a half for a journey that should have been about 25 minutes, and I was proper fuming. So I gets onto the motorway and I put my foot down a little bit, and I was doing exactly 70 on it, in the middle lane of the motorway, and from absolutely out of nowhere, this motorbike just undercut me. And as he undercut me, he went between the car that was on the inside of me and my car. Now, he almost hit the wing mirror. And as he went up to went in front of me, his back tire started fishtailing. Yeah. Now, I'm doing exactly 70 because obviously you don't want to break the law. But he's so close in front of me. I'm thinking, I can't stop here. I'm not going to be able to stop. He goes over. Everyone's in slow motion. He says, if he goes over, I'm not going to be able to stop. I'm just going to go over him. I'm going to kill him. I'm probably going to die. Happy days. Do you know what I mean? I'll say my prayers now, and then that's okay. So he fixes himself. He turns into the skid or whatever he does, and then it just goes and zooms off. Right. So I'm like a bag of shite right now. I'm like shaking and everything. And it pulls over. The nearest service station is about 7 or 8 miles down the line. So I pulls over. And as soon as I stop the car, the idea for the story, the whole story, the start, the middle, and the end of Crack just went. And it just came to me, just in my head. And that was that. And it was done. It's crazy. And there's another one. I've got a book called 9 Months, which I haven't released yet. Probably going to be released either next year or the year after. And literally, I was walking from my car from the car park to our work, which was probably around about 500 yards. And this pregnant woman walked past me, and she never said hello. Didn't know her. She never waved. She didn't smile. Nothing. She literally just walked past. And as soon as she walked past, this idea just went. I just flitted into my head. Yeah. So it just the muse. I know it's a. You're talking about muses. You sound like a pretentious. but it's weird. It just comes from nowhere, and it just just goes bang, in the head. So that's where. And the long answer or the short answer to a long answer, the short resolution to that long answer was I don't know.
They just come to you.
I don't know where it comes from. It just comes. Yeah, there you go. I could have just said that. We could have cut down like 15 minutes of this interview.
So what's the most challenging aspect of writing horror for you?
Spelling. I'm the worst speller in the entire world. No, I am so lucky and so blessed to have struck up a relationship with a woman called Lisa Lee Tone. Now, I don't know whether you know Lisa.
No.
She's an editor from America. She is phenomenal. She does a series of reviews called Bibliophilia Templum, which is not easy to say if you've had a couple of whiskeys.
No.
Bibliophilia Templum. Don't ask me to spell it. But I don't even know how. I just think it was just like you just started talking online. But she has been an absolute godsend because the toughest part of my entire writing is spelling. My spelling is atrocious and my grammar is awful.
Yeah.
So when I go in to speak to the kids, in the schools, I always say to them, listen, kids, just for today, you don't have to worry about spelling and you don't have to worry about grammar. And you can see the teachers are like, don't be telling them that. But that's the hardest bit. So getting the story down, I love doing. So, it'll take me, I'll get a story that'll come into my head and I can write a 90,000 word story probably in about 2 to 3 weeks. Brilliant. And then it's the re-editing and the re-going over it and stuff like that. And, when you get to a point where you know exactly what's going to happen next, but you still got to read it and you think, I've read this book 17 frigging times.
Yeah.
That's probably the hardest bit. And also fitting it through a 9-to-5 job, which kills me.
I can imagine, obviously, going to work all day and then coming home and then having to sit in front of a keyboard.
Well, luckily enough, I work from home. I've worked from home for the last 2-3 years. So I can actually just log on to my work and then write. so I like to say that I'm government sponsored. But I will vehemently deny that.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully no one's listening that you know.
No, I work with loads of civil servants. The majority of them people who I work with, they've got no imaginations. So I can't imagine them actually reading a book, never mind listening to a podcast. Not casting aspersions about civil servants, by the way, because I am one. So, I'm digging myself a hole here, aren't I?
Yeah, I'll go on to the next question before you actually bury yourself.
Yeah, it's probably best to move on. Yeah.
Okay, so do you ever scare yourself with what you've wrote?
That's a good question. Yes, will be the answer. And I don't scare myself as in like, I have to sleep with the light on type 5. It's not like scared as in like I'm scared of what might be in that cupboard there because it might be the ghost that I wrote about in that last story. No. But what I do scare myself about it, and I also scare my partner, Lauren, because she's my proofreader, Lauren. But she won't read me splatterpunk and extreme stuff. It's just not her vibe at all. Do you know what I mean? She doesn't want to dance that dance. So because I know that she's not going to read it, I can just let myself go. And then some of the scenarios that I come up with, I don't know whether you've read Zola, but it's widely sort of regarded in the splatterpunk scenes as one of the most grossest books that people have actually read. Yeah. You what? Sorry.
I have seen sort of like people comment about it in the splatterpunk group. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's what scares me, and the fact that like I can let my brain go there. Do you know what I mean? And apparently, I can do it again and again and again because I've got another 2 sort of extreme books which I'm working on at the moment as well. So it's just it's enjoyable to write though, because you're doing it with your tongue firmly in your cheek and you can just go there. But it's not dissimilar to writing children's books, because with a children's book you can let your imagination soar. Do you know what I mean? So the story about Father Christmas, stories about seagulls who are organised and living a life on this big rock on the sea and blah blah blah, and they can do all these magnificent things, and you can do the same type of stuff in the extreme horror. It's like if you're doing a thriller or you're doing like a drama or something, then you've got to keep it within the confines of reality. So your imagination can't soar with that one. You can only put it in the scenarios of real life. Yeah. But extreme and children's, you can do whatever you want, which is good, which is what I like. Yeah.
There's no limit, is there, to splatterpunk? You can just do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want to whoever you want, as long as you don't kill the dog.
Yeah. Or the
Never kill the dog. Yeah. I found that out in Crack, in my book Crack. There is a little bit of he kills 2 foxes and a dog, but it's sort of like his progression to being from where he was to being what he becomes. Yeah. In reality, I always say, you find out that the serial killers, they all started off killing small animals and torturing small animals. So if you want to get that level of authenticity, then every now and again you do have to. The dog has to get it sometimes. Yeah.
Is there anything?
I never kill sausage dogs though, because I've got a little sausage dog. And yeah, I'm not going to kill a sausage dog. Yeah.
So, is there anything that you wrote that you thought, oh God, like should I have really written that?
Yeah, everything. Everything I wrote, I go, Jesus Christ, no one's going to read that rubbish. My very first splatterpunk was Craven's, and it's very scatological. And I really thought to myself, no, Dave, nobody with a capital nobody is going to want to read this book. and how wrong I was. People love it. Yeah, it's mad. It's crazy. But the people who read the splatterpunk stuff are the nicest people you'll ever meet, and just for feedback and just general having banter with online and stuff like that. They're just the nicest people. Yeah, they've got the sickest imaginations, but they're the nicest people. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've said on quite a few interviews that the splatterpunk groups are really friendly, and you can see there's quite a lot going on.
And they're so supportive as well. And they'll support you and they'll have you back, and and it's just it's a great little community. It's my favourite little community, to be fair.
So, are there any memorable reactions from readers that stand out to you?
Oh yes, like I've just brought out in May this year. I brought out The Boyfriend, which I see it as a dark psychological thriller, okay? But it's very graphic and it's very, very detailed, and it's got loads of trigger warnings, and it's got like a 10-page rape scene in it, but it's not superfluous to the story. It's not just there for the sake of it being there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It has to be that intense and that horrible for the rest of the book to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it up there, and like people in the splatterpunk, I've called it extreme. It's an extreme thriller. I don't see it as an extreme thriller. And the people in the thriller groups, in one of the groups on Facebook called Psychological Thriller Readers, they love it. They've embraced it so much, and I think they just like the fact that like these trigger warnings did actually push their boundaries a little bit, but it's obviously got some cranks as well. So one review, and I love reviews, right? And I'll read every review, and I can take bad reviews proper on the chin. I have got no issues with them whatsoever. I actually really embrace bad reviews, and I laugh at some of them, like when what some of the things that people say. But one called me a paedophile.
Oh,
I know. They were like, this piece of garbage. DE McCluskey is obviously a bloke. I mean, I make no bones of that. You know what I mean? You can hear the fact that I'm not a girl. And he said and it is his dialogue between the teenage girls was pathetic and embarrassing, which I can take on the chin. Not a problem. Then she came on, she carried on, and she said, he's obviously not had much access to teens, and I'm actually glad because I don't think he should have access to teens. And I thought, aye, I've got a teenage daughter, do you know what I mean? I wrote this book for my teenage daughter because it's about, I never wrote it for her to read. I wrote it for her for any potential boyfriends that she has that comes home. Yeah. So they know that the mild-mannered father, me, has got a dark side.
Yeah.
But then she continued on saying that obviously this writer has dark paedophilic rape fantasies, and I was like, no. I can't do that because I go into schools. I'm DBS registered and everything because I go into the schools and stuff. So I can't have somebody on a review casting aspersions about me saying I'm a paedophile. So I reported that one. That's the only review I have ever reported, and it got taken down. So, but other than that, everybody. I mean, I even interact with the people if they allow me to. Sometimes they don't reply, but the people who've given bad reviews, I interact with them and I say, listen, 100% understand where you're coming from. Got no problem with the bad review. Let's just have a little conversation about it. And 9 times out of 10, they actually want to have that little conversation about it.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I've actually built up some relationships with people who have hated me books. There's one woman who's given 3 of me books scathing 1-star reviews, but we message each other all the time. And, it's like, she doesn't like my writing. Not a problem. It doesn't mean that, we have to not be friends.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the misconception, isn't it? They think that we're, just because we write splatterplunk and sick things, obviously, they think we're going to be, as a person, we're going to be like that as well. But obviously we're not.
Yeah, we're all going to be horrible. We all eat babies and, and stuff like that. I mean, we've all let a baby every now and again, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? But only once or twice, because they're really quite filling.
Yeah, with the chips.
Yeah. Unless it's for dessert, that's all right. But no, you're right. Some of these people actually think that the author. So I said to this woman, who wrote me that said that I was a paedophile. I said, you remind me of the woman in Friends who couldn't differentiate between Joey's character and Dr. Draco Amore.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And she was a bit shocked by that, and she just got angry then. But so I kind of give that one up.
Yeah, it's always worth giving up, isn't it?
It really wasn't. No, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me in the least. People can say I write rubbish books. People can say I write crap. People can say I'm a terrible author. Whatever. The reviews talk to themselves, don't they? Do you know what I mean? It's like I've got a lot more positive reviews than I have the negative reviews. So I used to let them sort of like drag on me, but I don't know more.
Yeah, but
I've grown up.
I mean, some of the reviews that you get, I got I think it was either a 1-star or a 2-star for Come With Me.
Yeah.
And that basically said, I was expecting gore, but not that. So I actually took that as a compliment. And
that's a compliment, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think
for Zola, I think I posted it the other day. I said this is the kind of 2-star review I can really dig. And the 2-star review was, this book, and to quote it, this book was fucking disgusting. I gagged, and it's going to live with me rent free in my head forever. And I'm thinking, job well done.
Yeah, if splatterplunk people who want to sort of read stuff like that, they're just going to go to the 1-star and the 2-stars, have a look at them and go, oh, okay, that's a good book.
Do you know what though, Crystal? What my advice to you is take screenshots of them reviews and post them in the splatterpunk groups, because people love them, and use it as a sales technique. And you know what? People love it. They do.
Yeah.
They absolutely do love it. But what also I find is that these people who give you the 1-star and 2-star reviews for your splatterpunk stuff, I sometimes look at other books that they've reviewed, and like 9 times out of 10, the book's full of like hot romance books and the Prince Harry book.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, why are you going to want to read them? And then why all of a sudden do you want to go and read Zola or Cravens, which is about people eating poo? You know what I mean? It's like, instantly you're not going to go with that. So why?
No. Boggling.
It is. People are now queer as folk are thinking the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how do you think the horror genre has evolved over the years, and where do you think it's going to go?
That's a tough question. I think horror has definitely evolved because, if you mention horror to anybody, if you mentioned horror to my dad's been dead 20 years, right? But if you went back in time and you mentioned horror to my dad, he'd say Stephen King, he'd say James Herbert, and he'd say Dennis Wheatley. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I think back in the 70s and the 80s, that was all we had. We only had Stephen King, really. And it was like, and you had Dean Koontz, but Dean Koontz was more thriller than horror, wasn't he, really? But now you've got genres within the horror scene, within the horror genre. So different genres. You've got mainstream, psychological horror, you've got horror comedy, you've got splatterpunk horror, you've got extreme horror, body horror, blah blah blah. This whatever horror you want, you've got now, because people have kind of like sort of like they've taken the Stephen King side of things and they're like the nice cozy little mainstream sort of horror and just like branched out from it. So they've taken like the 80s video nasties and brought them into books.
Yeah, they have.
So, yeah, I think that's the evolution of it. But what I do think is you're going to get an awful lot more crossover. I think now in the future you're going to get an awful like what I've done with The Boyfriend, where I didn't do it on purpose, but where I wrote it as a psychological thriller, but because I wrote it really, really graphic, and there's like a 3 or 4 really graphic torture scenes in it and a big massive rape scene. It's crossed over into the extreme. So I know a few of, and I'll say women. I'm not just being subjective, because 90% of my readers are women anyway. But a lot of the people who have read that from the psychological thriller group have crossed over now into the extreme group, because they thought, oh, do you know what? That's really not that bad, and it's quite titillating, and it's it's made me feel horrible about myself and made me feel a little bit dirty, but I like feeling dirty. Yeah. So I reckon you're probably going to get an awful lot of late 40s, early 50s who've got like the ripple and romance book when they're reading it next to their husband in bed, but really tucked inside that book they've got like Stolen Tongues, or they've got like something by Aaron Beauregard or something like that. You know what I mean? Or maybe even a Crystal Bainham. How do you pronounce your name? Bainham. Yeah, there you go. Where are you from, Crystal?
The Midlands.
All right, okay. Yeah.
So I think that's,
I couldn't pick it up on your accent.
I think that's quite a drive away. 3 hours, 4 hours.
From Liverpool?
Is it 3, 4 hours? 2 hours?
I don't know. I think the last time I parked outside your house, it only took me about an hour and a half to get there. Crystal now runs to the window and looks outside. See if you can see my laptop in the car.
I'll see you using my Wi-Fi with those earphones that conk out.
Yes, that's it. I'm only a poor civil servant. I've got to get my Wi-Fi somewhere.
Okay, so have you got any upcoming projects or releases?
Oh my word! Wow, right? Yes, I have. I've recently just brought out all these people are going to die 3. Which is, it's not like the 3rd in a series. It is, but the series are all standalone. Mine's called All These Kids Are Going to Die. So all them books, they're all Halloween based. That's like a nice little 15 rated horror for Halloween.
Yeah.
So just put that out. That's for the spooky season. I wrote a thriller released it about 7 years ago or 6 years ago, called In the Mood for Murder, which was based in Liverpool in 1946.
Yeah.
And I'm just releasing the sequel to that in November, called Sing, Sing, Sing for Murder, which is based 2 years after that. Then on Valentine's Day next year, I will be releasing The Stinky Stump, which is it's a nice romantic drama. No, it's a splatterpunk. It's a extreme splatterpunk. And then I've got another psychological thriller called By Descent, which I'm probably going to bring out next Halloween.
Yeah.
And then in between that, I've got another book called Black Feather Fever, which is the sequel to a book I brought out a while ago called The Contract. So they're all ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I've got a few little short stories and anthologies that are coming out as well. So it's busy.
Yeah, it sounds like you got quite a busy year ahead as well.
Yeah, well, I write all the time. I mean, I just if I'm not writing, I'm thinking about ways of killing people. So, in order for me to keep out of prison, like what we were talking about before, I have to write it all down in the book. No more eating babies.
No. So what advice would you give to aspiring horror writers?
Okay, you know what? I get asked this question all the time, right? And I have a set answer for this, right? So, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Jedi in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that's spelt Jedi.
Yeah.
Well, my advice to aspiring writers is JFDI. And it's just fucking do it.
Okay, yeah.
That is it. Now, I will give you that advice whether you're 12 or whether you're 72. Nobody is going to do it for you.
That's right.
Yeah. So you've got an idea in your head, right? I can't say to you, okay, you've got to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and you've got to write for 4 hours, and you've got to hit 6,000 words a day. I can't tell you that because I in my writing I work haphazardly. So I write here, I write there, whenever the muse takes you. So if you try to force it, if you try to push something out, you're going to get crap. You're going to get stuff that you don't really want to do because you've got to hit a quota. So I just say to people, just fucking do it. But the actual bit after that is when you need to do it. Yeah. So don't try to force it. Don't try to push it. But get down there and write it. And the only way that you're going to learn how to do it and the only way you're going to get anything out is by just doing it. That's
right.
Yeah. And that's my advice. That's the only advice I get. So people look at me and go, well, that was shit. What more do you want from me?
But it's like, right.
Pay me some money pay me some money. I'll come to your house and tell you how to do it. But no. Yeah.
So do you find do you find that you have a particular time of day that you can actually focus properly and the words just flow, or is it just any time of the day?
No, well, I'm an early riser, so I am that 5:30 in the morning person. So I can get up 5:30, get out, walk the dog, sit back in, get back in here for 6, and I can blast away then and write for 2 full hours and get absolutely loads of work done. Now, if, say for instance, the house is that I've got the evening to myself, say the kids have gone out or Lauren's gone out or whatever. If I try to write after 7 o'clock at night, it's garbage. It's absolute and utter rubbish. So I don't even try anymore. Really? I used to, yeah, but no, I'm an early riser. I can do it first thing. I can't do it late at night. That's writing, by the way. Yeah.
I find it's easier to write for me. It's easier to write on a night time when everyone's gone to bed. So I'm sort of like up until 1-2 o'clock in the morning. All
right, okay. Well, as I say, everybody's different. I can't do that. I can edit till late if I'm going through and reiterating my stories, but me creative flow doesn't flow after a certain amount of time. Like after we're finished here now, my laptop will just be closed and then I'll watch the telly because there won't be any writing happening tonight. So it's just one of them. It all happened this morning. So, but also I can't write. I can, but I find it difficult writing in a peaceful environment. So if I've got the house to myself, I really find it difficult to get into the vibe of it. However, if I go and sit in a McDonald's and I've got my headphones on and there's absolute chaos going on around me, wow, I can get some of my best writing done there.
Really? Glad you can.
Yeah, I just headphones on and I'm like, yeah, I look like all my mates call me a pretentious author. So they said like, oh yeah, I can see you sitting there with your laptop staring out the window, drinking your latte, and I'm like, fuck off.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think we've had a boss little chat here, haven't we? I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been wonderful.
Just get your listeners to go and buy me little horror book, me little Halloween book. I think it's $1.99 on Amazon. And then I've got physical copies if anybody wants a physical copy. But it's a nice little. It's a 15 rating horror, so it's it's just like a nice little slasher type vibe. It's nothing untoward, nothing like Zola or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I shall put all your links in the description below so people will be able to see where to go and get those.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So thank you very much for coming on the show and sort of like allowing us a glimpse into the author behind the books. It's been wonderful.
Well, thanks for having me and listening to me, because I don't get an awful lot of that, especially in this house. Start talking, everybody walks out.
That's no problem. Well,
I'm about to walk back in again. I'm still talking.
Stay tuned, dear listeners, for more spine-tingling tales and dark discussions in a world of extreme horror. Until next time, remember the nightmares are real, and here on Unveiling Nightmares, we're crafting nightmares one tale at a time.